Good morning, everybody. Judy Maggio with KLRU's Decibel. We have a special guest today. We've been talking about iconic Austin, and Joe Nick Patoski's written a book, and it's all in here. You know, a lot of the things that made the city special, the hippies, pickers, slackers, and geeks who transformed the capital of Texas. So we're going to pick your brain today and talk about some of the things you learned along the way.
I'm here for you, Judy. Glad to be here.
Well, first of all, you start way back, like when the buffalo roamed. And one of the things I learned was Austin was attractive to creative people and alternative lifestyles even way back when.
Well, I like to, going back to the beginning when this was a little community Waterloo. A visitor, very esteemed visitor came, the second president of the Republic of Texas, Mirabeau Lamar, who also was a poet. And he shot a buffalo with a hunting party right around 8th and Congress. And when he did, he felt so, I don't know, enthralled. They rode up to this hill, which is where the Capitol is now, and Lamar declared, this should be seat of empire. And he was instrumental in moving the capital of the Republic of Texas from Houston, which was kind of a malaria-infested swamp that Sam Houston liked quite a bit. It's named after him. He moved the capital to this place, Austin, which was on the edge of the frontier, and really there was no reason to found this place as a capital other than its aesthetic beauty and the fact that he shot a buffalo. This was on the edge of the frontier, right up, surrounded by Comanche, hostile territory. And the river was not navigable. There was no reason for Austin to exist as Austin, this important place, other than just it was pretty and it was a cool place. It looked like. So unlike most capitals that are founded as ports or transportation hubs, Austin was founded for all the wrong reasons. And I like to make the point all the way through with these series of origin stories is people come from somewhere else to work out their ideas, and they usually do it for all the wrong reasons. Starting with the Armadillo World headquarters, hey, let's get together and start a concert hall. So a bunch of people get together and clear out this armory and make a concert hall. Or Rick Linkletter and Lee Daniel deciding, let's found the Austin Film Society because we just want to watch more movies, and if we have a society, right, we can watch more movies.
We have a good reason to do it.
So no one has been coming here, at least historically, since 1970 in particular, and founding these great ideas, thinking, I'm going to get rich, I'm going to be a capitalist. No. Back in 1973 when I arrived, if you were smart, you went to the university and you graduated, you went off to seek your fortune in Dallas or Houston at the very least, or New York, LA, San Francisco.
Even when I was there in the late 70s, that's what you did.
But so if you stayed, you took this vow that, you're not going to get rich. You're going to get a state job,
but you get to live in Austin.
But you get to live in Austin. Yeah. You get to drink beer. You get to pursue leisure in a way that I like to point out. The oldest business in Austin, Schultz Garden, began in 1868, founded by Germans as a singing club. So it's all about our oldest business. It's not about commerce or anything. It's about drinking beer and making music.
Yeah.
And so it's baked into our DNA. Yeah. And there are few places on earth with this kind of lineage running through it that we just know how to have a good time better than people anywhere else.
I love that. And we have statues instead of to war heroes, we have them to musicians.
Yes, so we've been way out in front, even today. I mean, I look at other Texas cities, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio. They have musician communities, but really, musicians are kind of a step up from being a gang member. You're not even a blue-collar worker. You're not esteemed. And even if musicians have a hard time making it here, this is a place that really promotes not your commercial instincts. It's tolerating your creative impulses. So this is a great place to work out ideas. Mm-hmm. And musicians are held in high esteem. Live Music Capital of the World, all these organizations like HAM and Black Tide that are trying to, and SIMS that are trying to help musicians. No other city, I don't I would argue, at least in the United States, if not the world, respects musicians like Austin does. So, and it starts with music and then builds from that.
Well, speaking of music, tell us about this first picture. That's Stubblefield, right?
That's C.B. Stubblefield, Stubbs, and his protege, Joe Ely, who I met both of those folks in Lubbock around 1975, 76. I'd heard this album, the Joe Ely Band album, and I was working at Texas Monthly, so I ventured up there, and Joe introduced me to his world, which was like funky and creative, and I became a patron of Stubbs to the point whenever I'd visit Lubbock, like I'd arrive like on the nonstop, get there at 10:30 in the morning, I go straight to Stubbs and have a meal, and I'd go back in the evening, and I'd always ask for extra sauce, and I'd drink the sauce. It was so good.
And the sauce was marketed, right?
Well, it wasn't then, and in fact, you know, Joe, Butch Hancock, Jimmy Dale Gilmore, Lloyd
Flatlanders,
Haynes, all those folks drifted down here. They all had a history here. They moved, and Stubbs followed them in the 1980s. And in the early 90s, I tell the story about how Kimmy Rhodes and Sharon Ely, both from Lubbock,
Joe's wife,
had got together with Stubbs and started hand labeling bottles of sauce and marketing it, selling it locally. And of course, I make the point, I don't know how many millions Stubbs sold to McCormick's recently. Stubb was already gone. He didn't get to see all the benefits.
He passed away, right?
Yeah, he passed away in the late 1990s, but he was just a cool guy. But this is just typical. The coolest people in Lubbock, where did they end up? Austin.
And they're still playing together. I saw the Flatlanders recently.
Yeah, they're still at it. And I mean, for me, coming from Fort Worth, I like to think I was a little ahead of the curve, but Mike Buck, who runs Antone's Record Shop, followed behind me and joined the Fabulous Thunderbirds. Lou Ann Barton, who came out of Fort Worth and the new Bluebird nightclub, moved down here. And they all basically, along with, you know, the Vaughns from Dallas, all these people from Houston, the blues scene that happened in Austin in the late 70s and early 80s basically revived blues music nationally and internationally. No one was doing that like we were doing here in Austin. So it's always, that existed before 1970. If you lived in Texas and you were different, you came to Austin because it would, this was a tolerable.
It was tolerant,
yes.
Tolerant community, and people, I think, were not punished for or looked down upon for being different or weird.
Even though in '73, I remember I had long hair, walked into the Char-X up on Koenig Lane in Lamar, and heard these old boys, get out the sheep shears, and I didn't dare go to the Broken Spoke yet. Now, I did go by in 1975. My wife ended up working there as a waitress around that time. But at first, you know, Broken Spoke wasn't very welcoming to hippies. So it wasn't everywhere in Austin, but Austin was the one place in Texas that, you know, you wouldn't get your ass kicked. And that was just historic going back to the late 19th century. But
it's Elizabeth Ney and people like that. The creative types kind of flocked here.
But if you were really good and ambitious, up to 1970 or so, you left to seek your fortune, Los Angeles, New York, Nashville if you were a country musician, or if you were a creative hippie, you went to the capital of hippiedom, San Francisco. And there was a real important pipeline that a lot of the people that built San Francisco were from Texas, hippies in exile, notably Janis Joplin, but musicians like Pal St. John, the entrepreneur and dance hall operator of the Avalon Ballroom, Chet Helms. So everybody left, but starting in the early 70s, the out-migration stopped. And what started was an in-migration of people coming here outside of Texas because they heard Austin was cool. And it started with musicians, and it continued with film people, food people, and it built up to tech. And even with high tech, music is still this foundation. So even today with, you know, people, and we priced out the creatives and all this, look, everybody knows somebody in a band, or maybe you play in a band. And you do it not because you think you're going to get rich or famous. You do it for all the wrong reasons, because it's fun and it's cool. And that's what I was really worried about as I do this history, is Austin lost it. And heck no. There's Margaret Moser is one of these unsung heroes.
Yeah,
and there
the
is
late Margaret Moser. We lost her a couple years ago.
There is a Margaret Moser Plaza now, but
Yeah.
what Margaret did through her writing, particularly for the Austin Chronicle, and
About
for
the music scene.
and for the Austin Music Awards, and there she is getting her breast signed by Leonardo Flaco Jimenez, the great accordion player.
I love that.
To me, that's Austin.
Yeah.
And, you know, Flaco's from San Antonio, but he's in Austin as much as he is in San Antonio because this is a cool environment. And in fact, the first year of Austin City Limits, Flaco is one of the people in the cast. He appears on Austin City Limits 1975 because a great roots musician named Ry Cooder has kind of clued into Flaco. I used to go out to towards Lockhart, the Rockin' M Dance Hall. And it was a primarily Mexican-American or pure Mexican dance hall. And I remember going out with Joe Gracie from Coke FM, and we'd go out and hear Flaco.
I interned at Coke FM.
We were the only gabachos, the only white folks there. And we watched not only Flaco, but here's this guy, Ry Cooder, learning how to play bajo sexto. And I remember Flaco introducing him to the audience, my good friend Ry Cooder. And the audience is there to dance, and they don't know who this guy is from California, and they don't care. You know, you hear a smattering of applause, and, you know, we're like, oh. So, first year of Austin City Limits, Joe, who's programming, bringing in the talent, brings in Flaco and Ry Cooder, which...
which is amazing. And here we are in the same building because Studio 6A is right upstairs. That's one of the iconic Austin things. And that's a good segue to talk about Willie, because Willie was the first guest on Austin City Limits back in 1974. You have a long time reverence of Willie Nelson. I mean, you just really have idolized him, and really you wrote a book about him. Talk about the impact that Willie Nelson had on our music scene in our city.
Well, if we have an icon for not just music, but for the city, Willie's it. You know, he's an outsider, he's a contrarian, he's Texan through and through. And when he moved here, right around 1972, 71, 72, after his house burned down in Nashville, he was hanging out in Bandera. His booking agent found a dude ranch in bankruptcy. So all his band moved to Bandera. They were working Flora's general store in Helotes. And they came into Austin because Willie's sister Bobby was playing piano bars here. And Coach Royal was a big fan of Bobby's. He already knew who Willie was in the 60s when Willie came here as a country player. So Willie Nelson's 40 years old. His house was burned down in Nashville. And frankly, in country music years, that means you're supposed to retire and be selling insurance.
But he was, what, in his late 30s, early 40s?
He's 40.
Okay.
And so his band has a Winnebago that they travel around in, and they're coming into Austin to see Bobby, and they pick up a hippie chick in Kerrville. And where are you going? Well, she has him take me to this place in South Austin, and they let her off at the Armadillo World headquarters. And, it takes a little while for two and two to get together, but, everybody talks about Willie playing the Armadillo is the big bang. The lions lay down with the lambs. The hippies and the rednecks find a common bond in beer, which hippies in San Francisco were not into, and pot, cheap pot. We had a whole lot of that here. And in country music, for hippies, it was like, hey, it's my grandparents' music. And Willie was that icon, but what was interesting at that period of time, Willie was kind of a peripheral figure. He was one of the two old-timers. He came from Nashville. Doug saw him, had left San Antonio and been in San Francisco during the height of what was going on in San Francisco with the Sir Douglas Quintet. He moves back to San Antonio. He gets his ass kicked for having long hair and being different. He comes to Austin. This is safe ground, and plus there's really good music. And that's a signal to people. It's like, hey, this guy didn't move to San Francisco. He came back. Austin's cool. So to me, Willie playing in Austin, and I remember the first time I saw him at McMorris Ford showing off the new 74 Fords playing on a flatbed trailer.
Is that where GSD&M is now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I lived next door for a while, and when McMorris Ford was there, it was a terrible place, and car lot. I was in the Shoal Creek flood of '81 there, but I'm seeing Willie and his band, and they're playing on this flatbed truck, and it's like country music band, live country music. You can hear it for free, very traditional, but they're playing the song "Bloody Mary Morning," and just in the middle of that song, the band takes off on this jam. And I'd seen the Allman Brothers and I had seen the Grateful Dead. I knew what jam bands were, but I'd never seen a country band do this. And it blew my mind. So that period, 73 to 75, Willie and his band kind of rise up and become the biggest thing in Austin. They still don't travel very well outside of the state, but he does his picnic in Dripping Springs in 1973 and does, I missed that picnic, but I went to the College Station picnic in 1974, which was, I call the brain fry. But I started writing about him in 73. I was found this national music magazine called Zoo World, and it was really a second-rate magazine, but I could get my foot in the door. And I moved to Austin to write about music. I came here in 73 with that in mind. Not going to go to LA, not going to go to San Francisco, not going to go to New York. Something's happening here and I want to write about it. And I remember the first time I interviewed Willie was at Coke FM. And when I got there in this conference room with a glass window, I'm seeing there's Willie. And there's Chet Flippo, who's kind of an idol of mine because I'm...
It's a Rolling Stones guy?
Yeah, and that's why I moved to Austin. I'm reading Chet Flippo, and he's writing about Soap Creek Saloon and Doug Somm and Willie Nelson, and that signals me something's happening here. And I'm seeing Chet there interview him, so I'm already intimidated. Chet Flippo, and there's Willie, and I'm just checking this guy out, which is like beard, longish hair, headband, T-shirt, shorts, running shoes, and diamond pinky ring, very classic country. But he's got a diamond stud earring, not classic country. And he was very kind to a kid that didn't know much of what he was talking about. And I got to write about him a lot over that period of time, to the point of 74, that band was, they were famous for playing 5-hour, 6-hour shows. They were on fire. And it was crazy and wild. And then in 75, he confounds everybody by, making an album that's stripped down and spare called Redheaded Stranger. And I remember when the album was debuted, I think I was writing for the Austin Sun. And they were, Willie's people were very kind to me and open to me because I liked him and I wrote about him. So I got to go see the album premiere was at the Shepherd Drive-In, a drive-in movie theater in Houston, on the wrong side of Houston. And I think Dar Jamail was instrumental for that. But seeing Willie play in a drive-in, and in the middle of the show, this guy that was also on Columbia Records, which Willie had just signed to, Willie had never seen him before. This guy, Paul Simon, has trotted out to join Willie. And it's complete crazy weirdness, but it makes such perfect sense. And so, starting with Redheaded Stranger, everything changed, and certainly Redheaded Stranger in that period of Stardust, the longest, biggest selling country music album ever, which is really in country, it's pop hits that he did with Booker T of Booker T and the MGs. That period of time is Willie is no longer of Austin. He's this global thing. Yeah. But every time people talk about Willie, it's Austin. And what is this place? And I tell you, to this day, there's a Outlaws and Armadillos exhibit that opened up at the Country Music Hall of Fame, and I got to write some of their an essay for their program to this exhibit, and they still don't get it. Austin is still, what was going on there then and what's going on there now. And Nashville and the music business still doesn't get Austin. But Austin's not about the music business.
Yeah.
It's about making music for all the wrong reasons.
So why this book at this time? I know one of the reasons we're doing this Iconic Austin series is that I really want newcomers to understand what put this city on the map and the things that make it special in it, because I'm scared we're going to lose some of those things.
Well, that's kind of the part of the back end of the book is I try to investigate, go down some of these alleyways. You know, is it over? Is the goose that laid the golden egg been slain? And you know, I'm always looking for what is that spark, that element, that creative thing. Mm-hmm. And you know, you can call it cosmic. I tend to err on the side of Doug Somm, who always would talk about the groove. And now you have to pay a groove tax to be here. If you're an artist, you have to have money or an entrepreneurial spirit, something to so you can afford your habit. You can't slack like you could in the 70s and 80s. You can't be a slacker anymore. You got to be productive. But yeah, it's still here, and that's where it's all perspective. People complain, old timers, oh God, I can't believe what's going on. You know,
every generation does that.
I'm sad that Threadgill's World headquarters had to close, and I didn't get to that part in the book. I talked about Eddie trying to save Threadgill's World headquarters, which he did a valiant job and kept it going as long as he could. But it's all about perspective, and where someone that remembers the Broken Spoke as being the edge of town out on South Lamar. Once you got past there wasn't anything. Where Lamar and Ben White were, I remember that was always this little interchange that was full of bluebonnets in the spring, and Oak Hill was one house.
Out in the country.
Out in the country. Okay, but if you've just arrived here today, you're going down South Lamar, and you know, it's pretty interesting strip now. There's a lot of different restaurants, very cool restaurants. Used to not be very many cool restaurants in Austin. And you're driving along, and among these condos, you see this genuine, authentic Texas honky-tonk. I mean, the real deal.
And thank God it's still there.
And, you know, and you think, how cool is this? So it's a matter of perspective. People are still coming. They haven't quit. And most of them, I like to say, are coming for the wrong reasons. Not to get rich, not for the job. They're coming because they want to be somewhere where it's cool. Mm-hmm. They want that creative spark. They want to feel like this is their place. Mm-hmm. So just when I moved back from Minneapolis in '73, I didn't go back to Fort Worth, where I'd come from. I wanted to go home. Mm-hmm. And my home was Austin because the Armadillo, the Split Rail, Soap Creek Saloon.
Yeah.
And, you know, for someone who is different, it's like, my people.
Yeah. Writers, musicians, you know, we tend to thrive in this city. I had a friend once say, is it possible to love a city the way you love a person? And that's kind of the way I feel about Austin, too. And I really, what I love about this book is that I knew most of these stories, but you filled in all the gaps and all the details in such a rich way that I feel like I know Austin's history better now.
Well, and
it was a fun read.
It's really an alternative history, but that sounds so dry. And what it is it's biographies. You know, I've done Stevie and Selena and Willie and the Dallas Cowboys. I've used those subjects, and then it's all the perspective that you paint around it and what you choose to describe in the detail. And this is the first time that, well, I did a football team, but otherwise it's been people.
You did a city.
I did a city
this time.
because it's my city, and you know, I've got a history here, and I've always wondered, what is it about this place? And you know, when I got hooked on Barton Springs in the mid '70s, and I was a sissy first time. My girlfriend then convinced me to go down there and like swimming across the width. God, I can't believe it. Well, within a year, it's like I'm addicted.
Yeah,
and I've got to swim a mile a day.
Yeah,
and how cool is that in 2019 to be able to swim in a spring-fed pool, a natural body of water, less than a mile from downtown where you see all these skyscrapers. Folks, that doesn't exist anywhere else on Earth.
Yeah, it's a special place.
I was trying to tease out what makes Austin different and unique.
And you did it.
Well,
you did it.
Thank you.
I kind of think of Barton Springs as the soul of the city.
And it is. That's the one political thing I wrote about. Because this isn't about politics. This is about culture and alternative and outsiders. But I wrote about the Barton Springs Uprising in 1993, and I was part of that. Actually, 1991, and I was part of that. I was one of those yelling at the
longest council member meeting ever,
and which was great television if you happen to be watching it on TV. And I quoted, I went and found Mac Royal, Darrell Royal, the Coach Royal's son, because Coach Royal was all for this development, the Barnes-Connolly development, that was going to threaten Barton Springs, and it has compromised it, by the way. But Mac was the one to say, I'm the son of the football coach, and I just want to let you know I'm a swimmer, and I don't agree with what my dad said, which that's such a brave thing to do. And Mac telling me he had to go out of town, and he was driving north, and after he spoke like at 3 a.m. or something like that, and to find out, we won. And this was a battle. I remember the economist Ray Perryman was hired along with Karl Rove to basically pimp for the city, and the paper was on board. Oh, this is going to impact Austin's economy negatively $700 million, which was a lie. It didn't turn out that way. People kept coming. My only regret is in the 70s, we could have actually bought up most of that watershed for about $700 million. Oh, way too much money. But I think of today what it could have been, and we would have had growth around the edges. That wouldn't have stopped.
But we still have it.
We still have it.
And Austin still has it.
Well, that's what I figured out. And if you don't agree with me, I'll sit down and jawbone with you for a while.
Okay. So I know you have a book signing coming up. Tell us about the Austin to ATX book signing.
Well, Wednesday, February 13th.
Yes, day before Valentine's Day.
7 p.m.
Book People?
Book People is bringing the books. This is at the Austin Central Library.
Oh, the new library.
And if you haven't been there, or
it's
any of y'all
amazing.
haven't been there, it's a beautiful space. I got to give all the credit to Sarah Bird, and I went to her event
my friend
back
Sarah
in the
Bird,
fall,
she's wonderful.
And saw her there, gave her a hug, but I went the next day thinking,
that's where I want to do
sure
my
would
book
like
signing.
to do something like this.
Okay.
So we're going to kick it off at the library because it's all about reading words. And that's the other kind of discovery I made is, I say it starts with music, but our literature, our literary community goes back to our founder who was a poet. And we've been writing like crazy ever since.
And I think that we went full circle with this book, and we really think it's a great one. And we're glad you wrote it, and hopefully folks will come to Central Library on the 13th.
I'm glad to be with you.
Can't see what you write next. Joe Nick Patoski, the book is Austin to ATX. Thanks for tuning in this morning. We'll see you soon.